So I just wanted to start off by giving a explanation of what I wanted for this video and my goals were in making this video. What I want to talk about is the effectiveness of Magic Circle throughout different titles in the Zelda series. I chose to play the original Legend of Zelda because it's the first one. I will also play Tears of the Kingdom because it's the last one. And I wanted to play Skyward Sword and also Zelda Four Swords. I decided to do Four Swords because I wanted to play on some of the original systems that the game was meant to be played on. And I do have a Game Boy and I have Zelda's the Four Swords for the Game Boy, so that just worked out. I also chose Skyward Sword because Skyward Sword was designed to have a lot of repetitive movements, which I will explain later in the video. But here you can see me like swiping. There are a lot of those very repetitive movements in Skyward Sword. Johan Huizinga wrote Theory About Magic Circle, saying that it's a magic sphere separate from like the physical world, and there are certain conditions that put you into this alternative space. To emphasize, Magic Circle response correlates to a sphere that is created around you, the living room, the arcade, the bedroom, and the game creates a sphere. Something that he highlighted that I wanted to talk about in my video was the rules that have to be maintained for this sphere to even exist. In class, we also talked about this, the illusion of freedom. Games are supposed to be free, relieving us from everyday life, but there are many rules when it comes to games. You think you can do this and you think you can do that, but really you can only do what the code has allowed you to do. So if we are talking about a space that is not physical, there clearly has to be rules in place that let us know, like, we are not in a physical space right now. This is different than me going to work every day. This is different than me going to school. This is different than me visiting family. This is me entering an entirely different space. There has to be rules that make that exist. Also with play, for things to be played, there are rules that have to be set so you don't, once again, feel like I'm going to work. Here is where I also want to introduce the flow state. I did research at Wright State about flow state. It's a period in time where you do not recognize that time is passing. You're doing something, maybe you enjoy it, maybe you don't enjoy it, but being in those actions, for whatever reason, your mind does not register that time has passed. I think that flow state and Magic Circle have a lot of similarities. Your mind is put into a meditative state that is ignoring what is happening in the physical world. I think that game developers want this. They want you to be put in a non-physical state. You're entrapped into the game. You love the game. You buy the game. They make money. This is how the world works. In my research, something we did realize was repetitive movements do put you into this meditative state. In video gaming, there's not as much repetitive movement as sports or piano playing, but there is repetitive movement. In video games, because of how they are coded, there is so much repetitive movement that we choose, that we don't subconsciously choose to partake in, but we are forced to, as that is just another rule of video games. The rule is that you have to move the joystick forward to move forward. So for the majority of the game, you're moving forward. You have to constantly hit A over again to attack your enemies over and over again. You have to hit X because you constantly need to switch out the gun you're using. You need to switch out the bullet you're using. You need to go to a bow and arrow instead of a sword. You have to press you have to hold B to run. Maybe you have to hold Y to roll or do a somersault. Whatever it is in video games, you're doing repetitive things over and over again. I thought that Skyward Sword, as I referenced earlier in this video, would be unique at this because in Skyward Sword, instead of pressing A to attack your enemy, you you take the remote and you go this way or that way or whatever, but instead of just pressing a button to fight, you're fighting them. Zelda is a really long series, and there are a couple things that show up across many of the games, and when people think of Zelda, it's like this is a very unique, defined Zelda thing. But in Zelda, you might have a task and it's you need to be on the other side of this wall. In real life, I would just walk out of the door in my bedroom and I would be on the other side of the wall. In Zelda, you would have to find a magic tunnel that you would open with a magic password. You wish you could just blast through a wall because you know what you want is right behind that wall. Instead, you have to spend 45 minutes figuring out the secret, going all the way to this end of the dungeon, and then taking the secret tunnel that puts you over here behind the wall. It's a long process. In the newest games, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, they take a very, very different approach than the traditional Zelda game. It is very open air. In Tears of the Kingdom, maybe I could put a demonstration video in here. Instead of walking all the way around to here and there to get to the other side of the wall, you can bust through very simply. In the earlier Zelda games, you couldn't even jump. Now we're busting through ceilings. So the game developers do acknowledge we are this long standing series. This has been, when people think about our games, there are some things that they always think about. Breath of the Wild is not that. Tears of the Kingdom is not that. How do we keep them in? Just like reading a book, watching a movie, world building goes into how deep you feel into the movie. For example, when you go to see a new Marvel movie and that Marvel intro plays at the movie theater, I think it's a part of the movie's magic circle, bringing you into the cinematic universe. In just the Zelda series, there's a song, it's called Zelda's Lullaby, and they play it a lot throughout the series. In Skyward Sword, I thought the best thing about Skyward Sword would be, as far as Magic Circle, would be the amplified repetitive movements because you're doing this all the time. But I honestly did not think that was as big as an effect as how they used Zelda's Lullaby. The ethos was just done really well in Skyward Sword, and I think the storytelling was amazing in the game. But they just used Zelda's Lullaby so well to portray a lot of emotion and a lot of feeling in their players. This is Zelda's Lullaby. So like Marvel's intro, Zelda does have some of these things that will show up in every single Zelda game that you play. Also, I think game systems in general, sometimes they have sounds that's just oh, I remember hearing that sound because every time I turned my PS5 on, it made the sound. For Game Boys, they also do have a sound. I'm gonna try to play it for you guys. Try. Hopefully you could hear that. You could hear this. But that is also my ringtone on my phone. It is the Zelda song. Like these main songs of the series, you're in this universe where Zelda is going on. You hear that song and you already know. In Zelda, there is a lot of things where it's okay, this is definitely not real life. Link, your main character, does not talk. A lot of the merchants, they're really funny. They have some interesting conversations back and forth with you. In Zelda.
Oh! Oh! Hi!
There are some reoccurring characters like Beetle, who travels around and sells you things, and he has, witty jokes sometimes. But also it's just Beetle was in this game that I played 15 years ago, and I thought it was amazing as a child. Now they're still building upon this world. It does put you into this, oh, this is separate from everyday life. The developers know when someone buys one of their games, they think something like this. This is a game that I played 5 years ago. They released a new title, I brought it, and in the end I have to fight the main force of evil, Ganon. I have to power up my weapons with the power of light. I have to collect pieces of the Triforce to win. All these things just they build upon that world that puts you into this Zelda magic circle. Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom is admittedly very different than the rest of the Zelda series. There is no longer one path with a lot of riddles and one answer. You really have more freedom. You still are restricted, but you have more freedom, much more than in past games. And you've lost some of that traditional Zelda essence, but because of these reoccurring characters and some of the other things they do, like sound, which I'm going to talk about next, you still have like this sense of this is what Zelda is. Zelda is my favorite side character. Zelda is the traditional side quests that show up in every game. In Tears of the Kingdom, an interview before Tears of the Kingdom, the developers talked about how much effort they put into the sound of the sky. In Tears of the Kingdom, there's three levels: the sky, the earth, and below the ground. As you're diving from the sky to the earth, the creators have admitted to putting in so much detail into the music of that. What is the music of the sky and what is the music of the earth? And when do you stop hearing the sky music and when do you start hearing the earth music as you're diving? I believe that all of this effort creates the environment that allows Magic Circle. All of this just it brings you into the game. You really pay attention to the features of the game and you're not paying attention to something like the passing of time. Admittedly, when I started this project, I did not think that Magic Circle was going to be very effective in the first game. I just didn't think it would be a priority from the first game. However, I was proven very wrong because playing through the first game, there were things that I was not expecting to see. I was not expecting to see the witty comments from the merchants in the game. I was not expecting to see some of the side quests, like the money making games that exist. I was not expecting to hear the same sounds that I would hear in the current Zelda game. Since the developers of Zelda have put so much effort into having a world, some of the same side characters, the same side quests, the music in the games, they've built up this world that makes you think this is Zelda. Some of the feelings that I got from playing the current Zelda games, when I started playing the original Zelda for this project, those same feelings surface because they're doing the same things, they're creating the same world, bringing you into the same magic circle. Two examples of this is just like, I think Zelda can have dramatic game overs, and then also you solve the mystery sound. One of the feelings that I feel when playing Zelda is confusion, but that is the point of the game. The point of the game is there's puzzles and you're not gonna know what to do. So this next clip is just me very confused with the original Legend of Zelda. Okay, hold up. Okay. Hold up. Hold up. Wait. I'm already confused. Right after this clip, I was still having this mindset of, oh, the first Zelda game isn't gonna be all that. So I did go in very negative, but if you asked me after this clip how I felt, I probably would have told you that the game was too hard, that there was just no direction, that they did nothing to story build, they did nothing to make you like the game. But thinking back on it later, I don't think I would agree with that opinion anymore. As I went through my project and I had the mindset of, like the theme of my project, Magic Circle, how do the Zelda developers keep people into their game? I realized this upset and this frustration that I felt in this first Zelda, I felt in Four Swords, and I felt it in Skyward Sword, and I felt it at moments during Tears of the Kingdom. I really think that maybe they did not know that Zelda was going to become a major series that it did, but the the riddles that are really hard to solve, it brings you into the game. When story-based games blow up online on social media or whatever, people often they have like their favorite parts of the game. It's not the main story, it's not the main character, which you would think it would be. Like people's favorite part of the game would be the main story of the game, because that's the default. It only makes sense. But oftentimes the side characters in the minor parts of the game are what make people really love the game. It's what they associate with, it's what they remember about the game. This is because often the side characters are the ones who are letting you know how to actually beat the game. In Skyward Sword, there is a plaza where all the merchants have booths at. One of the merchants is a fortune teller, and she will tell you about the next major steps you need to take in the game. Of course, this is in the form of a riddle, but she still does tell you, and this is how she does it. So even in the other games, even in the first game, I you feel frustration when you don't get the riddle. And you go back to the side character and you're talking to everyone and you're trying to figure out what's going on. That's something that has existed in every single Zelda game. But no matter what, even if I am frustrated and upset with the developers, when I'm playing Zelda, I'm not anywhere else. When I am hearing these wacko comments from the side characters, from the antagonist of the game, I am in the magic circle. I am not in my living room. I am playing Zelda, and that is the only thing I am thinking about. This is an example of one of the quote unquote wacko experiences that you have in Zelda. So to summarize everything, I think that the creators of Zelda, the developers, they did play into Huizinga's theory on Magic Circle. I think they have effectively created a space where you are playing Zelda. You're not doing anything else besides playing Zelda, and they have done this through not only music but story building, the side characters, the side quests, the reoccurring themes that show up in Zelda. it it really helps in aiding you in getting into this bubble that is Magic Circle. I also was wrong in how I thought that maybe Magic Circle wouldn't be effective from the first game, but really they have taken elements from the first game and they have brought it to today, to the very last game they have made. So I think they have effectively done Magic Circle.